Hey guys, Noel here, and it is Wednesday, and I'm going to do take two of a video that I was just filming. I was doing a review for the Sega Saturn, and I got a phone call to do a political survey. And Lord knows I like to yak about politics, so I did that, and it was fun. So anyway, review on Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn is my second video game system. I was given it when I was in seventh grade as a kind of a compensation for going to a high school different than my elementary school friends. And it ended up working out really well because I liked the high school that I went to. It was a small Christian school, and I liked the Sega Saturn, and I still stayed tight with my friends, so all's well that ends well. Sega Saturn, I think it's an unfair rap with a lot of, I guess, Western video game commentators. I would argue that the Sega Saturn is on par or better than the Nintendo 64 and even arguably the Sony PlayStation. And if you look at how Sega Saturn did in Japan, I think my opinion ends up getting played out, at least in terms of Japanese opinion, for whatever that's worth. Now, Japanese advertising for the Sega Saturn was great. I encourage all of you to look up Segata Sanshiro commercials. They're very funny, over the top, warm, and ironic. So I think that, and energetic as well. So Google or YouTube Segata Sanshiro, and you'll not be sorry, and you'll see how cool Sega Saturn actually is. Sadly, in the United States, Sega Saturn commercials were these awkward Gen X commercials with muffled voices and screaming blue heads, and they kept calling Nintendo Plumber Box, and I don't know, it was very odd. But nevertheless, the video games on Sega Saturn were great. Some people will try to argue that Sega Saturn couldn't do 3D gaming, and that's absolute nonsense. And I'm going to show you some really good 3D games on the Sega Saturn right now. But before I get into that, I highly recommend hooking up your Sega Saturn one of two ways. Now, if you want to do it in a new school way on a new school TV, you'll want to have what's called a SCART cable. You can get off Amazon. This one hums a little bit, like audio-wise, not anything major, but it does hum slightly, and I know different SCART cables, just depending on something inside of them, they can be easily adjusted if you know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. So this one I just have to put up with the hum. It's, again, not really a thing that you even notice. So you get this off Amazon, Sega Saturn SCART cable, and then you get a SCART to HDMI upscaler if you are playing it on an HD TV like this one right here, and then you can get the upscaler here. You hook the HDMI into one end, the SCART cable into the other end, and you hook the HDMI up to your TV, and then you'll get a really, really clear emulator quality picture for your Sega Saturn. But the way that I actually prefer to hook up my Sega Saturn is with a Luma Chroma cable, which is like a technical way to say S-Video before the S-Video was even a thing, to a high-resolution 80s computer monitor like the Commodore 64 1084S, and this has an extremely crystal clear, bright picture. So I highly, highly recommend hooking up your Sega Saturn like this. You need to just have an S-Video cable for your Sega Saturn, a Commodore 64 monitor, and a Luma Chroma cable, and an S-Video video game selector switch box, and you will be good to go. Now, Sega Saturn's memory works through a lithium battery that saves directly to the system, and my lithium battery died a long time ago. I got a new one, and it for whatever reason, died, and I lost all my data. So I've got a Code Action Replay, and it's got a memory manager on it, but for some reason, I have a hard time figuring out how to save to it. So I really just have to figure that out. I don't know if anyone in the comment section knows anything. But right now we're going to play Nights into Dreams, which is one of my first Sega Saturn games. Again, it wasn't very well advertised in the United States, and by that I mean, no, we're going to play Fighting Vipers. Which is, I forgot what game was in there. This was also awkwardly advertised in the United States. It did get advertised, but the commercials were just very weird. I wanted to get the Japanese version of this game because it had Pepsi Man in it. I'm going to be Candy. She's called Honey in the Japanese version of this game. Actually, there's a video game called Fighters Megamix, which is like a 3D Sega King of Fighters type game that's got the Fighting Vipers, Virtua Fighter 2, which also made the same people who made Virtua Fighter made Fighting Vipers, and Sonic the Fighters, which is a 3D Sonic fighting game, which is actually very, very good. That was going to get released on the Sega Saturn, but the Sega Saturn, I guess, got discontinued before it could actually get going. So, anyway. But yeah, this game really, I think, does a good job of showing off the colors and the smooth 3D graphics of the Sega Saturn. So basically, this is a 3D martial arts game with stylized skateboard Japanese Generation X cage fighting in colorful locales. So, and again, the music is excellent. So, why don't we check out a different game right now, and we'll actually, for this next game, we will do Nights into Dreams, made by the Sonic team. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to watch obscure video game history videos on YouTube, like the history of Sonic Extreme and Action 52 with the Cheetah Men. But Sonic Extreme, I think, is actually really interesting, and I feel really, I don't know, I've been in situations where I've worked very hard and passionately on creative projects, for, whatever reason, you just, you put everything you have, you put your health on the line to get something you're passionate about done. And Sonic Extreme was definitely a game like that for the people like Christopher Sen and Christina Coffin. They didn't seem to get much support from Sega of Japan, including Yuji Naka, the guy who helped create Sonic and did the Nights into Dreams video game. From what I've heard, he was pretty negative and antagonistic toward the Sonic Extreme video game. So apparently people who were making Sonic Extreme wanted to use the engine of Nights to speed up the development on it, and apparently he wouldn't let him use it. So that it's really interesting. If you YouTube search Sonic Extreme history, there's just a huge amount of information about the ups and downs of the creative process and how passionate the people who making the game were, and also the rivalry between Sega of Japan and Sega of America, and just the different perceptions of Sonic the Hedgehog, both in the United States and in Japan. It's a really interesting, fun, and in some cases kind of tragic story. Because people working on Sonic Extreme almost died because they were working on it so hard. They're coming down with exhaustion-based pneumonia. But anyway, Nights into Dreams, as you can clearly see here, this ended up being the kind of Sega Saturn alternative to Mario 64. And I think graphically it is on par with Mario 64. It's a different style of gameplay than Mario, though. It's slightly more linear. It's a cross between linear and totally, platform 3D. And it strikes a really fantastic and beautiful balance between those two gameplay styles. And the music on this game is amazing. It's got a fantastic, it's an, I'm using a descriptor too redundantly, but really, really great soundtrack, especially when you get to the Relia fight. Another cool thing about Sega Saturn games, if you had them, you can just pop them into your Discman and listen to them like CDs. So I think we've got a pretty good understanding of what Knights is like, so why don't we check out a different game now? Why don't we check out Sonic 3D Blast. I'm off camera getting it. Now, Sonic 3D Blast was the Sonic game for the Sega Saturn. This was what got put on the Sega Saturn instead of Sonic Extreme, which was a fully 3D Sonic game that visually looked like a cross between the game you're about to see and Mario 64, but with a fisheye lens. Really interesting. You Google or YouTube Sonic Extreme. It's worth looking into. Now, Sonic 3D Blast, there was a port of it on the Sega Genesis and on the Sega Saturn. And the Sega Saturn version has really very nice music and FMV videos, and the Sonic team, even though I was saying how they were kind of antagonistic towards Sega of America when they were trying to make Sonic games, they did a really nice special stage for this game. Really great looking. Yeah, it's very heartwarming. Anyway, like an 80s sitcom opening or something. The Japanese version of this game was called Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, and it had some very cool, like, late 90s Japanese box art. Very stylized, like a cross between Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Dreamcast. It looked really it looked very cool. People complain about the load times on this game. I don't know, judge for yourself. I don't think this is anything that terrible. Video games in the 90s had load times. Okay, it's not the end of the world. And this is what this game looks like. It plays differently than a 2D Sonic game, but you still have the basic mechanics, rings, the spin dash, and then the goal of this game is to actually rescue the Flickies from the Dr. Eggman's or Robotnik's, depending on your preference, robots, and then you basically you basically drop these guys off in a giant ring once you collect them all. It's okay, buddy. So you drop them off in here, and when you get in here, you go to a different part of the level, and, you know, this right here, this tells you, you know, how many you need to basically pick up. Now, at a certain point, you can actually find, if you get 50 rings, which I don't have because I just got hit. Here's the thing that makes you go fast here. You can find Sonic or, you can find Knuckles or Tails, and they will take you to a special stage that is very cool. It's a very nice looking Sonic 2 style special stage. Maybe we can actually get to it if there's time in this video here. I know we're probably past the 15-minute mark here. Yeah, I doubt we'll get to the... Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Here's an invincibility box here. There's Tails. So basically, you just drop off the amount of rings that you have to drop off to, and if you can get to 50, you'll get to the special stage. So yeah, 24. 24 plus 13. Let's see, if maybe I can just not get hit here. Oh, screw that. Okay. So anyway, guys, this has been my video for the Sega Saturn right here. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and that's my phone. So until next time, guys, my name is Noel. You all take care. Bye-bye.